Really quick, guys, just to give you a backstory, before Primerica, I worked as a dean of students for the Chicago Public School System. I then became a high school administrator, and at that point in time, I had convinced myself that I had arrived. So when Mika brought the Primerica opportunity to me, I actually respectfully declined. I was that person who was not at all interested in working Primerica. So I'll flash forward to 2.5 years ago when Mika gives me a phone call and she says, hey, I need a really big favor. I ask her, what's going on? Is everything okay? She says, yeah, I'm fighting for a super big promotion. I need you to join me in business and I need you to get licensed. And so at that point, I already had my bachelor's and my master's. I figured, the credential won't hurt. I decided I'll go ahead and I'll get licensed for her. Now, I went ahead and I got licensed, and after that, she said, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I love it, but what I really need is for you to go district. So I went district my first 30 days in the business, and at that point, that was my intro into Primerica, guys. I started making money helping families, and I wanted to keep doing it. And so I remained a happy part-timer with Primerica for a few months. And when you're a happy part-timer, you don't necessarily win, right? And so the first trip on the table was to the Atlantis Resort in the Bahamas. And unfortunately, I didn't win, but let me tell you how God works in mysterious ways. Tennille Mallard, my upline's upline, invited me on that trip as a guest. And when she took me on that trip, guys, I have to say that it completely changed my life and my perspective of the Primerica business opportunity. So I sat there and I was in the Atlantis, and I have to say that I felt so incredibly uncomfortable. And I'll tell you guys why. There were 3 major things that happened on that trip that pushed me to go back home and go to work, right? The first thing was that I realized in sitting with all these amazing people at the breakfast table that I was the broke person at every table. And when you come up in Chicago and you think you're winning and you're in the higher crowd when it comes to your group and you realize that you're not, at that point I learned that I had tricked myself into thinking that good was great. I actually settled for mediocrity, and I didn't even know it. It took sitting at the table with Bobby Buitan for me to think, oh my God, why would I ever think $80,000 was a good salary, right? And so there was that issue. They always say sit with winners and the conversation is different, right? And so I sat with winners, and that conversation was so different that it pushed me to realize, I need to go home and go to work, stop giving my all to a job, right? And so the second thing I learned on that trip, guys, was that I was operating with a 1040 mindset, not a 1099 mindset. And it actually took a conversation at the breakfast table with an 18-year-old, and shout out to him because he's actually in the room. And so, Mr. Guerrero, where are you, Juan Guerrero? So Juan asked me what I did for a living. And at that point, I was so excited because I used to take pride in telling people what my job title was. And when I told Juan what I did and I asked him that same question, he said, I don't work for anybody else. See, I'm going to be my own boss. My parents are RVPs, and I'm going to be an RVP as well. And so that was a complete mind shift for me because I thought to myself, if this 18-year-old understands the vision and he's fighting to become an RVP, how is it that my 29-year-old self doesn't get it, right? And so I went home, Juan, thank you so much, because a few months later I fired my boss because of that conversation I had with you. So, yeah. So number 3, guys, on that trip, I learned that you have to fight for your name. This is a crazy story, and I tell it all the time, but $1 Million Income Earner Coach Evans called me Carolyn on this trip. And for you guys who don't get it, my name is Cassandra. And so I thought it was an honest mistake the first time, and when he did it the second time, I realized he truly believed my name was Carolyn. And that was my fault. I didn't fight for my name. I didn't fight for myself. I didn't even win the trip, so I definitely wasn't being recognized. So how is it that I was working a 9-to-5, pushing to be an exemplar employee, but I came into my business and I cheated myself because I was treating Primerica like a side hustle? And so I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna start double-digit recruiting, I'm gonna fight to get on the Leaders Bulletin because my coach, Jeff Mallard, he told me, listen, Cassandra, don't take it personal. Coach Evans is a $1 Million Income Earner, so he only knows the people who show up on the Leaders Bulletin. Jab, jab. Right? And so I got it. I got the message loud and clear. I went home and I fought to compete in the below RVP category in Illinois, and I dominated it for the last 2 years, right? So I made it my business to come back, fight for my business. I didn't even anticipate being on this stage today, but man, I am so grateful to be here. I'm super excited about my business and my future because I know the best is yet to come. So right now, I know we have amazing things going on in Chicago, guys, but I want to let you guys know that we're just getting started. This is just a brink for us. Chicago's in the building, right? And I want to go ahead and say special thank you to Mika, because when she asked me to join her in business, she thought she needed me, but the truth is I needed her. I needed Primerica. And when I signed my IBA, guys, I gave myself an opportunity to obtain freedom and build a business. So now my 9-month-old daughter can actually have something to look forward to, and I can only hope that she says the things that Keith Otto's daughter said on this stage when she spoke to us. So I'm super excited, guys. Let's go home and let's get big.